the days in Wall Street. I mean, everybody wants to live that life, back in the day. What was the appeal of being part of Wall Street?
It's really tough to describe. I mean,
Michael Douglas, right?
I remember I got my first job with Goldman Sachs after 7 rounds of interview, and when I stepped into that office on day one, I was blown away. I mean, that's just one of those moments I'll never forget. Right, and from there, I think it was just something different. Walking down that street is a little bit special for me.
Walk me through that, the first day at Goldman Sachs.
Yeah,
Walk me through that.
It's quite something, because, I mean, you're surrounded by people who are absolutely brilliant at what they do. It's Goldman Sachs. It was obviously one of the leading banks on the street, and it still is.
Right.
And what I liked about that company over many of the others that I worked with is they have that special vibe. I kid you not. I mean, it's just they hire top quality people, and they've created that weave, that cultural weave, where everyone thinks and breathes the same language, and you can feel that energy when you're there. I mean, I remember this one story actually taking me back 20 years now, where the MD at the time, we had a problem. We had a tech issue and a production issue, and then so someone came back and said, "Hey, listen, it's broken, and our users are yelling, etc." And then so the MD walked over to the software developer who was working that software, and he asked him, he said, "What's wrong? Why can't we get it sorted?" And so the guy was like, "I just can't figure it out." And then he asked him to move over, and he started looking at the code himself.
Wow.
Right? It was at that point I was like, oh my God. Because if you scroll down in the code, version 1.0 was written by that guy.
Right. So he probably
crazy.
knows some hidden stuff in there, right, that nobody else would know.
Yeah. So those kind of things, right? Those kind of experiences.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in other words, like what I'm getting from this story is that you don't forget your roots.
Yeah, for
right.
sure.
You know
Absolutely.
where you come from,
Absolutely.
but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do everything yourself.
Sure.
Right. And in that case, as you progressed through that, hiring a lot of people and eventually opening up your own company, is this something that you take with you, that you don't do everything yourself? You really have to learn how to delegate. You really have to be able to trust your team and just somehow or other leverage on them to develop their dream with you.
And that's exactly right? Because as a founder, you're never short of things to do. Right? Optimizing your time is a constant struggle, because you're just trying to get better at who you are and what you do and grow the company and sort of build this castle midair, right? And so I think you can't do that without a trusted team. You can't do that without entrusting people with very key tasks and decisions and giving them the latitude to not get it right, right? That's the most important thing. It's not just about the trust, it's about the latitude such that if they do fail the first time around, it's all right. It's all right. I wouldn't say it's no big deal. Reflect on it, get better at it, but it's all right. Let's experiment.
Man, the industry has been shifting. The layoffs have been crazy. What's been happening? Why are there people being laid off? I don't get it.
So if you think about why businesses come about, it's for growth, right? And when the single, in my reflections anyway, for what it's worth, right, is that the single largest thing that drives growth is not your opportunity. I think it's what you look at from your peers as well. Right, so when you look at all of the FANG companies, etc., everyone started hiring like crazy because no one wanted to miss the boat, right? And so they ramped up tens of thousands of people and did this and that, etc. And then it was all well placed at the time because people made some assumptions on new trends that would appear, and some of those trends appeared and some did not. So what followed from there was layoffs. Now we had experienced the same thing a little bit with Lehman Brothers. In 5 years, they went from 8,000 to about 26,000 people, right? So that's a phenomenal amount of growth. And Lehman was able to handle it just fine. They had some fallouts after that and so on and so forth.
Right.
But they were able to handle it just fine. When you look at that at mass scale with so many companies doing the same thing, then suddenly you're in the situation where everyone is overstaffed, right? And if you look at overall layoffs and percentages, when people are laying off 5%, 7% of their staff, or perhaps even 10%, obviously that stings. It stings like a bee. But what they're doing is they're once again reacting to the market, right? So I think it's just the reality of it.
But it almost sounded like they're victims of their own success. Like,
they are.
Because, they suddenly just decided, okay, I'm going to expand. I'm going to get a lot more people. I need to fulfill that growth. But it almost feels like, I don't know, how would I put this without sounding too idealistic, but because I'm seeing growth, I need to fulfill my business.
Yeah.
But when I no longer have that, I'm just going to let these people go. To an extent, it almost sounds heartless.
Yeah.
But is that really the case?
My experience is that, and I should be careful about I say this, but my experience is that, companies are companies, right? So they think with their brain, not with their heart. Everything is calculated. People are, at the end of the day, a number on a file. That file gets indexed, put forward, etc. I mean, why do people refer to head count, right? Why is head count such an important measure? It's exactly that, because it's heads.
Yep.
Right? And so heads can go up, heads can go down.
But I'm